Jorge Charnico,
Here.
Lee Peoples, Anthony Black,
Here.
Dylan Bradway, Donna Cervantes,
Here.
Matt Guillory, Tyler Holmes,
Here.
Ben Sellers, and James Farnham. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Everybody should have received in their packet the minutes from the July 25th meeting. Are there any questions, comments, or revisions that need to be made to those minutes? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Passes unanimously. This month we have no cases withdrawn, no cases with continuance request, nothing on the consent docket, no cases for individual consideration. We do have some other business, and I'll turn it over to the Planning Department. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. This is a proposed ordinance amendment to various sections of the Downtown Ordinance and the Urban Design Commission Ordinance. I presented it last month for informational purposes to give you guys a chance to think about it since then, because at this meeting, I'm asking the commission to make a recommendation to Planning Commission to set it for introduction and carry on through Planning Commission hearings before it goes to City Council. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly just because I presented it before and I don't remember if everybody was here last time. But this ordinance, nothing has changed since I presented it last month. The purpose of it were about five big picture things. One is to incorporate changes that resulted from our Cottage District outreach that we did in 2016 and 2017. We also did a study with the Automobile Alley Association about guidelines in Automobile Alley that might need to change. Staff also keeps a running list of idiosyncrasies and inaccuracies we recognize in the code that make it hard for applicants to use, hard for us to use. So we've incorporated some of those in this. We've also realized in the past several years that there was some leftover language from when Paseo was under Historic Preservation Commission review. There's some leftover language that didn't get omitted that has caused multiple points of confusion the past couple of years. So we're trying to get rid of those once and for all. And then we're proposing to change most fence regulations to guidelines. Our existing fence regulations in downtown are unusually restrictive and basically result in one type of fence that applicants can use when applicants, including Cottage District applicants, would like more variety. So Cottage District, many of you I think participated in our big kickoff at the Civic Center 2 summers ago, and then it continued into smaller work group and focus group meetings, dozens of meetings, and all that culminated in a big report out meeting last summer. The results of which is collecting all that feedback. Planning Department staff recommended that the downtown development framework be adopted by reference in the code. This commission has already adopted it as a resource, but in the ordinance, we will write it into the code, so it'll be much easier for users to find and know that they need to reference it. We proposed to eliminate the requirement that the first 2 floors be at least 24 inches above grade. That was part of the historic development pattern in Cottage District when everything was envisioned to be cottages. But once everything started going to a more contemporary style, a raised porch is not part of that design vocabulary. And the committee has not enforced this guideline in years. Commission, I'm sorry. And then we added language to specifically state that staff has the authority to administratively approve some CAs in the Cottage District. A couple last year, during one application, it was questioned whether staff had the explicit authority to issue CAs in the Cottage District. And we've added some language to clarify that. We believe, and I believe applicants believe, that some staff discretion on CAs is necessary. Otherwise, every single application would be coming to all the committees, and your meetings would be very long. So, Automobile Alley, the Automobile Alley Association asked Planning Department if the Automobile Alley Guidelines for the Next Century, which is a supplemental guideline document prepared 20 years ago, if that should be adopted by reference or otherwise embedded in the code. So in studying on whether that needed to be done, we compared it to the existing code, we compared it to the Downtown Development Framework, we compared it to the Building Conservation Guidelines to see if there were any differences, any other information in those other two resources that the Automobile Alley Guidelines covered that they didn't. And our analysis was that everything was covered, everything about not painting brick, everything about sidewalk zones, everything about facade transparency, all of that information was already covered between these two existing guidelines. One thing that was not covered was it was covered. One thing that was conflicting was information on maximum building heights. The Automobile Alley Guidelines suggested that buildings shouldn't be a certain differential above the building next to them, which if you have a short building next to you, that means you can't go more than a story above it. And the downtown regulations are 3-story minimum, so there's a conflict on how high you're supposed to go. So as part of that conversation and a discussion with Automobile Alley Association, we're proposing that north of 6th Street be that we set a maximum building height of 80 feet, and below 6th Street would be a maximum building height of 140 feet. So that essentially recognizes that in the historic core of Automobile Alley, that no new build should be taller than some of the existing big red buildings right now. And that south of 6th Street is a more natural transition to the Central Business District, which is an unlimited building height and which has the tallest buildings in the downtown. General downtown changes, we've located some language regarding the expiration date for certificates of approval to make it easier to find. There was some conflicting language about whether or not chain link fencing was allowed on street frontages. We believe it is not ever appropriate on the street frontage in downtown. Again, fencing information that was a regulation, we're moving most of it to guidelines. We're keeping the heights, the maximum heights, the same, so they would be regulations, but information about pickets, picket spacing, allowed materials, all that would be moved to guidelines to give applicants, staff, the committee a lot more discretion. And these fencing regulations and guidelines, because they're in Section 7200, they are the fence regulations that are followed for Cottage District cases. And there's a reference to the downtown Oklahoma City Streetscape Master Plan that was intended to be eliminated in a past ordinance amendment that didn't get erased. So we're striking that because it has not been in use in 4 or 5 years now. So urban design district specific changes, I referenced before that when Paseo was being reviewed by HP Commission, it had a separate set of guidelines, and when it moved to review by Urban Design Commission, the guidelines, regulations and guidelines were changed to recognize that it was not being reviewed as a, quote, historic district, but they weren't all struck out. So we've gone through and removed all those conflicting language. So next steps, tomorrow I'm presenting this to the Planning Commission Urban Development Committee. They are a subset of the Planning Commission, and I will be asking them to recommend it to Planning Commission to set for introduction on October 13th. Any questions? Really? Okay.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have a motion?
I think you have an audience.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Questions.
Come on up.
Hopefully it got overlooked. It's relative to UDC, and it's relative to setbacks.
Sorry.
Brian Fitzsimmons, 719 North Francis.
Thank you.
As it has been written and as it's now currently proposed, for single-family and duplexes, they have to honor the setbacks of being within the range of the street. That's all good. However, if it's more than a duplex entering into multifamily, it has to be, per the zoning, within 10 feet of the property line. That creates an inherent conflict of building types that if a multifamily wants to honor the street wall, so to speak, they have to get a variance to honor the street wall, and vice versa. So it seems to me that all building types within that district should be under the same setback ordinance.
So what you're saying makes sense. I'm at a loss as to, is that something we could address here, Lisa?
I know the portion you're talking about. Nobody has previously brought it up that I remember or have a note of.
It was brought up in the public discussion of this way back when, but
Yeah, we can't add it, like right now, the second, the language isn't even in the ordinance right now because we weren't touching that section. I'm happy to bring it back.
So we could specifically address it at a future meeting? Is that what I'm understanding?
Well,
You can make a recommendation. I mean, since they're recommending the ordinance, I could make a recommendation that something be
Contingent
added or
upon-
whatever.
yes.
An amendment be
and-
made. I mean, and that could be your recommendation on the planning commission, if you so chose to make that amendment.
Hold on, I'm digging through my book.
and I think cleaning up that language would probably prevent a lot of the conflicts that have been happening.
Right.
Okay, so Brian, I'm sorry, your concern, okay, the ordinance language is written addressing setback for new single-family residential and new two-family residential, and your concern is that if it's not one of those types, that you don't have to match, so the setback for single-family and two-family is within the range of other housing on the same block. And your concern is if it's not one or two family,
Then they're
that
actually required,
to be at or within 10 feet, which is significantly different. And I'm trying to,
and I can think of like one case in particular that I think passed with flying colors, and I was supportive of it, but it was a multifamily on 8th and Francis. I think it's dubbed Cirrus now, but
facing Francis,
is, or I'm sorry, Chartel.
I mean,
and
facing
8th.
Chartel.
Right, And on that one, it was a fourplex, and they designed it respectfully to be within line of the houses. Well, they had to go get a variance to be allowed to push it to be in line with the houses. So it's kind of a catch-22. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Brian, are you suggesting that the requirement of a variance be eliminated, or that they be required to go in line with the houses?
I think the smartest thing, in order to respect everything that has happened all the way until today, is to require all development to get a variance to not be in line. So, in other words, even commercial multifamily should honor the setback that has been long established.
So is that something that could be handled separately from this ordinance amendment? Because it seems like the language of it probably needs to be vetted.
Yes, this is, I'm sorry, I would have liked to discuss this before. Right now, this second, I have no memory that we discussed this as one of the, from all our outreach, that this point would be covered in this ordinance amendment. I'm happy to take a break and study incorporating it. I was trying to quickly think through.
It was at the big meeting in the library where it was discussed by a few people in the audience.
Yeah, I don't have my notes from that meeting. But I didn't, for several meetings, this has been the record of what I remembered everybody agreeing to, or what the planning department agreed to. So if you are not supportive of the ordinance as it is written, I'm happy to pause and regroup everybody to address it. Otherwise, it would have to be done in a I won't have enough time to, that will take some time.
Would it be more appropriate to continue this, or for our motion to reflect on the record what is being considered?
I guess I would ask that you either recommend it as is or continue it, because I feel I need to come back to the commission with more information on the effects of that part of the change.
But is there a harm in separating the two issues, making our recommendation on the ordinance as it's currently stated, and then following up, say, at the next meeting with a separate recommendation, specifically to what Brian's talking about?
I'm looking at Susan.
I would probably just continue it, since you're going to have to come back anyway.
Yeah, but we're-
I'd be afraid it would start the process over, which is not good. So. If they were separate.
Yeah, how long has it taken?
I'm sorry?
How long does it take to get it from where it was to this far? For that, if that one item was separate, how long would that process take?
I can't, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't say, because I've done zero analysis on that point. So I would ask that, I guess I would suggest you continue it to the next meeting. By that time, I can come back with some meaningful analysis on what should change and why, and look at the past case history and see if there is only one way to address it or not. But I can't tell you what all those are at that point. I don't want the commission to make uninformed decisions.
You've got a meeting tomorrow, though.
Yeah, I can get that. I can still present there and explain to them that we may be looking at another change.
Okay. So with all that said, is there a motion to continue this for a later date?
I'll move to continue the item.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, to the next
To
meeting.
the next meeting.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great.
Sorry.
You're still up, Lisa, or is that Michael for the meeting
Yep.
schedule?
Michael will do the meeting schedule.
Yes, as we always typically try to do at this time of year, we bring forth for you the following year's schedule for our agendas for 2019. We like to try and do it at this time of the year because it needs to be brought forth to the city clerk's office later in the year, prior to the end of the year, and not knowing what our workload's going to be and whether our meetings are going to be held, so on and so forth, we try and bring it forward at the earliest possible time once we have the calendar set, or at least in a draft form for your consideration. So we've provided for you the meeting dates and deadlines in that attachment that goes with this item. The only variations we have this time around for 2019 are similar to the ones we've done in years past at the end of the year, to move the meetings to the third Wednesday for both November and December to get as far away as we can from the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas, and attempt to preserve our opportunity to maintain a quorum for those meetings. Accordingly, the deadline dates will also move up by a week as well. And we've also noted that as approved for the 2018 calendar, the deadline for the January meeting in 2019 has already been moved up to the third Tuesday in December. So with that, we're prepared to respond to any questions or comments that the commission may have.
Any questions for Michael? Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the 2019 calendar year Urban Design Commission scheduled meetings.
Second?
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Next, we have communications. Michael?
Yeah, we have a variety of administrative approvals that were completed over the past 30-day period since our last meeting. A number of them involve extensions for artwork in the Plaza District, for the Plaza walls, various applications that were approved 2 to 3 years ago. And then additionally, we have some sign revisions on a project on Northwest 23rd, some revisions to the Yale Theater approval that was granted a few months back, and also some revisions to the newer version of the building at the west end of the Plaza District that's being constructed by Mr. Struble. And then there's a sign going up at Shepherd Mall for the last one, item number 8. So that's just kind of a rundown of the 8 administrative approvals we've done since we last met.
Do the commission members have any questions for Michael? Great. Do we need to vote on that, or I don't believe we do? Okay. Other comments from the planning department?
For those of you wanting to maintain tabs on the progress of the Lincoln Boulevard Overlay District, it was recommended for approval to the City Council by the Planning Commission last month on August 9th, and our schedule for that item right now is to be introduced at the council meeting on September 11th, first public hearing on September 25th, and the second public hearing for adoption on October 9th. So we're looking at a situation here where the Lincoln Corridor, if adopted by the council, would become effective sometime in early November. And we may or may not start seeing applications come in for your consideration on your agendas.
Great. Any comments from commission members?
I have I don't know if it's a comment or a question. I was driving, I think it was last month, we had a big issue about painting or not painting a building in the Cottage District, in the Plaza District. I was driving through Plaza District this morning, and they were in the middle of painting a building that appeared to be unpainted brick. They were 3/4 of the way done as I was driving through there. What's the regulations for the approval needed for that, or?
Well, first of all, they need a CA regardless, because the CA is required for any exterior modifications to a building. And then because painting of unpainted brick is not in compliance with the guideline that pertains to the urban design district, they would have been brought before the commission for that CA rather than being approved administratively. So if there has been a painting of an unpainted brick building and hasn't already been turned in, then somebody needs to work to get the address and turn it into the action center.
So Matt, it's a different address than the one we looked at last week.
It's very close to it, but yes, it's, I think the one that we looked at last week was on the east side of the breakfast place in the Plaza District,
Right.
Aurora, I believe the name is. This was the building on the west side of that same breakfast place. So 2 or 3 storefronts away.
Right.
I'll see if I can get the address for you. I'll
Okay.
email it.
Any other comments? All right, our next meeting is September 26th. New applications were to be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. on Tuesday, August 21st. Revisions and information on continued projects are to be submitted by August 28th. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
You too.